Hi folks, welcome back to LAB. I'm doing something a little bit different this week because I know quite a few of you are going to be starting your training contracts over the next few weeks, which is really exciting. And one of the biggest culture shocks for me about starting my training contract, aside from the whole being employed thing, was time recording. Nothing really prepares you for it during your law degree or LPC. You learn a lot about black letter law and about the practical skills of being a lawyer, but no one really prepares you for the administrative burdens of being a lawyer, and time recording is arguably the biggest one, and one which I still really struggle with actually, because I never really learned a proper strategy of how to do it from the outset, and as a result of that I've always struggled with it and still do to this day. So I wanted to shoot this video so that you hopefully don't end up going down the same pathway as I did and you nail it from day one. Very brief interlude before we start on the main part of today. I am up for another award, yes, but it's down to public vote, and I would really appreciate it if you had 2 seconds just to click on the voting link, which is in the description, if you like what I do and appreciate LAB. I'd be super grateful. Thank you so much. So what is time recording and why do we do it? The vast majority of you watching this video will be going forward to start your training contracts in private practice, so private law firms essentially. And by far the most common billing model in private practice is the billable hour, i.e. we bill our clients at an hourly rate for the amount of hours that we've worked on their particular matter. So it follows that we should then be able to justify the time worked on that file. So we need to be able to describe and account for every hour that we've worked on their matter. In order to do that, we therefore need to record what we're doing on the file as we go along. Enter time recording software. Although we bill by the hour, not every task takes an hour, so the hour is actually split up into 10 units, each unit being 6 minutes. So if a task takes you between 0 and 6 minutes, that's 1 unit. If it takes you between 7 and 12 minutes, that's 2 units. If it takes you between 13 and 18 minutes, that's 3 units, and so on and so on. And you'll be set a target of how many hours you're supposed to record in a day, a week, a month. Broadly speaking, qualified solicitors generally tend to have a target of somewhere between 5 and 7 chargeable hours a day. So that means of every day, you need to be charging a client for between 5 and 7 of those hours on the whole, and you'll be told whatever your specific target is when you start. There'll also be other things that you have to do in a day that are non-chargeable. You'll have meetings about charities or business development or strategies or other things, but normally you'll have a target set for the number of hours you actually have to bill a client for, and then you might have a separate target for the other stuff, but the one I'm going to focus on mainly is chargeable time today. As a trainee, your target will generally be lower than that of a qualified solicitor, but here comes the first tip. The best thing you can do as a trainee is try and hit your chargeable time target for what it will be when you qualify as a solicitor. This is for 2 main reasons. One, you will smash your trainee target, which makes it even more likely that you'll be retained. And 2, it means that you won't have so much of a jump when you become a qualified solicitor, because if your target is quite a lot lower, say like 3 or 4 hours lower as a trainee than it is as a qualified solicitor, you've then suddenly got to come up with an extra 3 or 4 hours once you qualify, and essentially you'll be doing the same work. Right in the end stages of your training contract, you'll essentially be doing the same work as you'll be doing as a qualified solicitor, except that the day before you qualify, you'll only be expected to record, say, 4 or 5 chargeable hours a day, and the day you qualify, you'll be expected to record, say, 7. So if you can start recording 7 from day 1, then you'll find that whole process much easier. So what kind of activities do you record time for? Absolutely everything is the answer to that question. Anytime you draft an email, you write a letter, you pick up the phone to somebody on that case, you have a discussion with your supervisor, all of those things require a time entry. So anytime you do any work on that file, always make sure you know exactly what time you started that task and what time you finished so that you can make a note of it on your time recording system. A lot of the time, it'll also be appropriate to record a file note as well. So rather than just the single time entry, you often need to do a note of exactly what you've done to support your time entry. Particularly if you've spent a really long time on something, you're going to need to do a note to justify why it took you that long. So bear in mind that it's not just a time entry on its own, but the accompanying file note that you also need to make time for. So what's a good strategy for time recording? Record everything as you go along. So every time you do a task, get that time entry on there. Do not wait until the end of the day and then try and record everything you've done during that day, because the chances are you will have forgotten half of it, your time estimations will be inaccurate, and you'll be in a rush to do it because actually you want to get out the door. So the chances are you'll miss something or do something wrong. It's really important to get your time entries on the sheet throughout the day. And I know that can sometimes be difficult because if you're really busy, you just want to get on with the next task. You don't want to spend time inputting stuff onto a time recording sheet. But it's really, really important to do that because otherwise you get into all kinds of mess if you start delaying your time recording. If you've got automatic time recording, great, or it syncs with your case management system, that's brilliant, because every time you bring up an email on that case or you start writing a letter, it will automatically time record for you. But that won't help you if it's a phone call or a discussion. You'll need to make a manual time recording entry for that. Do not under record your time. This is a really common thing to do, and what I did for years. If something took me a really, really long time to do, I'd feel embarrassed about how long it took me, and I'd say it took me less time just so it didn't look so embarrassing. But actually, all that does is do you a disservice, because one, your hourly rate is lower to account for the fact that it takes you longer to do certain tasks. Second reason is that normally before the client is billed for the work, somebody else will look over the time and the bill, like your supervisor or your billing team, and they will reduce the time if they think it's appropriate to do so. Okay, so that's like the basics of today. I'm just gonna do a super quick run through of how you make a time entry just so you can see what time recording screen looks like, but it's not in depth. I know this video has already been much longer than I expected it to be, so we'll be super quick. Okay, so this is what my home screen for my time recording software looks like. This is a piece of software called 3E. Some of you might use it, some of you might use different software. This is a manual time recording system. I mentioned that some of you might have automatic ones as well that integrate with your case management system. So you can see here that this is currently showing the split between my chargeable time or billable time, which is in red, and then my non-billable time, which is in orange. And if you look at my summary page down here, you can see the vast majority of my time is billable compared to the amount of time I spend doing non-billable. Non-billable can be virtually anything that's work related, but you can't charge a client for it. But the vast majority of the time you'll be expected to be doing chargeable work that you can actually bill a client for. So this is kind of what my time entries look like. So you can see I can have anywhere between 1 entry and 100 entries depending on what I've been doing in a day. If I'm working on one long task, I might spend 7 hours on one task, but more commonly I will do several smaller tasks in a day to make up my chargeable time target. So just to give you an idea of how making a time entry works. So if I want to make a time entry, I just click on this plus here, and then another row will come up at the bottom. Now, I would normally put the matter number in here, but obviously it's a bit too onerous to try and think about remembering all of your matter numbers. So I've actually set up a quick list where I've put in essentially like mini nicknames for my file, so I don't have to remember the file name. So I've got a client with the surname Jones, and they are just in as Jones. So if I put in Jones, tab across, the client's name would appear in this section here, but I've obviously condensed that for confidentiality reasons. So the type of case then comes up, and then I record the time entry. So let's say that I spent 10 minutes drafting an email. I would put 10 in there. That automatically jumps to 12 because, as we know, it always rounds up to the number of units. So that, because it's 10 minutes, it's between 6 and 12. So that is 2 units of time. The activity then, sorry, actually, just speaking about the no charge box, this is if you're doing what is theoretically a billable activity, but you're not actually going to charge the client for it. But I'd always get your supervisor's permission if you are ever going to tick this box, because it essentially means that you're not going to charge the client for that work. Activity then, this is just a code which symbolises what kind of activity you're doing. So let's say I sent her an email. I know that's code A106. Don't worry about this too much. And that then comes up with communicate with client. And then I would just put a short narrative in here and just change this to say email, to client, and then tab across again. And then this task is basically a litigation specific box which asks you to record what phase you're in, because we get budgeted for personal injury cases, and we need to be able to allocate what phase this particular task is in to make sure that we don't go over budget and it's assigned to the right proportion of the budget. So don't worry too much about that at the moment. This is kind of meaningless to you and you'll learn it as you go along. So I'm just going to put in anything. Okay, and then once that is complete, I would then go back over here. I would go up here and I would click this tick if I wanted to post it. I'm not going to post it because it's not real, but if I was going to, then I would tick that and it would then be posted. Considering it's not a real entry, I'm just going to click on this and then I'm going to delete it. And that is it, all done. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching Time Recording 101. If you like videos like this and the more practical stuff, then please let me know and I'll do more of them. In the meantime, those of you who are starting your training contracts, congratulations, this is an amazing time. Check out my video about how to prepare for them as well if you haven't already, and I'll catch up with you guys in the next couple of weeks. Bye!